Martin, we've been working together on TruckTest for so many years, and this event simply wouldn't happen without you. But explain to me, tell a man in the street, what does Truckscience actually do?
Truckscience develops software to simplify the process of selecting the best truck for the job. Our software is used to calculate axle weights, estimate fuel consumption, and predict total cost of ownership. And our customers benefit by speccing safe, legal, and efficient vehicles.
So a transport operator can't just walk out there and buy a truck, or would that be a silly thing to do?
Yeah, that would be a silly thing to do. Transport operators would need to evaluate the profitability, obviously, of the vehicle that they're going to buy. So it's not like buying a car where you choose the vehicle based on how much you can afford, maybe what color you like and what interior finishing. A truck is bought as a profit-making tool, so it has to be able to move the right load over the route and produce the best cost per kilometer and cost per ton.
It's a tool, it's a workhorse, it's something that's there to generate money for you, unlike a car, which is going to cost money at the end of the day, right?
Correct. A car is very much a personal, passionate decision, and a truck is very much a business decision. It's a tool, it's a piece of equipment, and it needs to get the job done.
And it's a super expensive decision to make. What would you estimate a truck and trailer and load, like the trucks that you've got behind you, what would one be worth as a thumbs up?
Okay, these rigs behind us are worth about 2.5 to 3 million rand each. So you're looking at the trailer is about 600 to 700,000 rand, and the truck tractor is probably about 2.3 to 2.5 million rand.
So if you buy the wrong truck, it's a very costly decision.
Correct.
Costly error, shall we say.
Yeah, buying the wrong truck for an application can hurt you with every kilometer that the vehicle does. So you want to make sure that the vehicle can carry the correct payload that's required to do the job, and that it produces the right sort of fuel consumption and average speed.
Okay. Tell me about TruckTest. Why is Truckscience involved in TruckTest?
TruckTest is an opportunity for Truckscience to put our scientific calculations to the test in a real-world scenario. So we simulate axle weights, trip times and fuel consumption, and then compare the results of our simulations to the actual results after the test. We use this comparison to improve our data and algorithms so that we can simulate any vehicle over any route as accurate as possible.
And how accurate are your simulations?
The feedback we get from our customers is that our simulations are typically accurate to within 5% of actuals, and this gives them the confidence to use our software to predict total cost of ownership for new contracts or to set benchmarks for existing routes.
And obviously it's also a very inexpensive way of judging what a truck will consume, the fuel the truck will consume, because if they're doing test runs, they're spending an absolute fortune on diesel, aren't they?
Correct, yeah. So, using software to simulate vehicle performance is much more cost effective than, for example, running a test like this for every application and every vehicle type that exists. So with software, one can simulate all the different scenarios at a much lower cost.
Getting back to the test, how does it compare on the African continent and globally?
This test is one of its kind in Africa and probably even in the entire world. What makes our test unique is that we are testing 8 vehicles on the same day under the same conditions, whereas tests conducted overseas are typically done on one vehicle at a time. With our test, we'll be able to make direct comparisons between the different vehicles because the trailers, the loads, the traffic and weather conditions will be the same for all the vehicles.
Tell us about the trailers that we have here. There are 2 different types of trailers, correct?
Okay, we have 2 trailer combinations. First one is what we typically call a taut liner interlink, and these rigs are typically 22 meters long and gross out at 56 tons. The Trident trailers are grossing out at about 48 tons, and those are probably used more for in flat deck applications such as this one, or for reefer trailers to move fast moving consumer goods.
And the curtain sliders, what sort of applications are those used for?
Those are very flexible and can be used for most commodities, anything from palletized goods, food, supermarket products. They will typically move products from factories to distribution centers, and then smaller vehicles will distribute the products from the distribution centers to, let's say, for example, supermarkets.
And would it be fair to say that these are two of the typical trailers that you'll see on the roads in South Africa?
Yes, these are definitely typical rig configurations for the South African market. Taut-liner interlinks, if you look at vehicles on the highway, say between Durban and Johannesburg, you'll see many taut-liner interlinks. And Tridem trailers are also very productive vehicles. You'll also find them on long routes. And you'll also find those on cross-border applications where in some countries the legislation does not allow interlink trailers. So the Tridem semi-trailer is a very sort of flexible combination for most of the southern African countries.
It's been an interesting balancing act loading the trailers inside for this test. Tell me about that and how complicated it is and how important it is not to overload an axle, for instance.
Yes. So in the preparation for this truck test, we obviously had to plan the load quite accurately. It was an extensive exercise, and we partnered with Vibro to load brick pallets onto these vehicles. And for starters, we had to estimate or try to calculate the average weight of a pallet. And with bricks, it's not an exact science. Every brick has a slightly different weight. So we did an estimate, weighed some bricks to determine what the average weight of a pallet is. And in the end, when we loaded the vehicles, we found that for the interlinks and for the Tridems, the payload was probably about 700 kilograms more than we had planned, and that pushed us very close to the legal limit. So we had planned to be quite a bit under the legal limit. We ended up very close to the legal limit, and in one or two of the vehicles we might just be slightly over, but well within the 2% tolerance that is allowed for weighbridge calibration and this type of scenario where it is very difficult to plan the exact weight of the payload.
And of course, this is something that transport operators have to do every single day. Every time they're loading their trucks, they have to think about exactly the same thing.
Transport operators will have this challenge on a daily basis to ensure that their loads are legal. And in some cases, even simple things like the weather conditions, for example, if it rains, it could increase the weight of the payload. And in our scenario with the bricks absorb some water, so that could also have added some extra weight. And we are aware of the fact that a few days or a day or two before we loaded the vehicles, there was rain up in the Highveld, and that could have added a bit of extra weight. In applications such as timber, the load could absorb even more weight from the rain.
So actually running a transport company is quite a tough job.
Yeah, transport operators are tough. They have to be tough. They have to adapt to the changing environment from one day to the next. Traffic, weather can change. Our roads are not always safe and not always well maintained, so they have to take that into consideration. So being a transport operator is not an easy task in this country.